Good afternoon, RAP Working Group faithful. It's great to have all of you with us. And when you look at the top of the agenda, you'll see RAP agenda number 42. So that's something for us to give ourselves a hand for. That this is at least the 42nd meeting that we've been tracking of this very, very important slightly under the radar working group that has been really advancing wildfire risk reduction throughout California, and also strategizing and putting work into action to bring insurers into our fold and get people the incentives and the rewards that they need in order to make this all work on an individual and personal level. So um, wherever I go and members of our team, we are fanned out across the state at events, community events hosted by supervisors, events hosted by mayors, events hosted by assembly people, etc. Um, and I, one of the talking points that we use is just to give people a little bit of hope that there's a lot of energy and effort going in to trying to solve this problem of people losing their insurance, not being able to afford their insurance. Um, and I feel like this working group is embodies that fact and that truth. So thank you all for everything that each of you are doing in your communities around the state. So here at United Policyholders, in addition to doing all these educational programs, we are continuing to be attending conferences with and dialoguing with state insurance regulators and insurers and data vendors and all of you who are out there on the front lines doing the hard work of home hardening and creating defensible space, and then all the public land work that's going on with shaded fuel breaks, all of which is so important. And of course, when we see the headlines about the park fire, our first thought is it's a setback. But then it is looking, at our latest counts, as scary as it is and as hard as it is for the brave firefighters that are up there and working in Butte County, and as hard as for those of us who know how important it is for us to have another, as many years as we can go without having another campfire, is really helpful to insurance underwriters and insurance executives just mentally, and all of us. So while it is scary and it is very sad, the reports are looking like some of the initial structures down. Estimates were a little high, but we're still getting reports in. So there may be folks on the call that are more current than I am, but at first there was a report of over 150, then it went down to 20. Now today it's sort of up to 100. But it's sort of, I think we really won't know because it's a really, really hot one, obviously. So, but we're going to keep moving forward. There's a lot of good forward momentum that we're going to continue to, to be part of and to promote. The great news on our end is our RAP Resource Center, the online wildfire risk reduction and asset protection resource center, which we created with a grant from the Governor Office of Emergency Services LISTOS program 2 years ago. We were only able to do a certain number of counties with the funding that we had gotten, and we've been trying to stretch it while we waited to get funded again. We had sort of a gap. We have been refunded, so funded again. Plus, we've got 5 community-based organizations that are sub-grantees with us. So we are going to be able to keep on working on adding more counties and resources to that resource center. So you're going to be hearing from us that we want you to take a look at your county again. We want you to send us updated information about any grant programs, any chipper programs, any kind of if your county has added wildfire mitigation specialists now, or you've got some pilot going with IBHS, or you're doing something with CAL FIRE, Safer from Wildfires. We need to know about that so we can put that in that resource center, because our goal through that resource center is to shorten the hassle factor for any household that says, okay, I know there's stuff I need to be doing. I need to figure out what it is, who can help me do it, and where do I go, and where might I be able to get funding and technical help. So that's our goal. So proud of my team that we were able to get that funding again. And my son, Jordan Foxbach, who's on the call, is going to be doing that work of adding the stuff to the counties in tandem with Emily Rogan and Ben Letourneau and the rest of our team. So you'll be hearing from us to get your updates. And thank you so much for helping us stay current. I know a lot of you have programs in your communities that you may not be taking the time to put the information on the web. So we're going to be looking for whatever channel makes it easier for you to get us that information. We're also going to be adding some information to the center on any kind of tax rebate or efforts that may be pending to get mitigation expenditures and labor and materials to be tax exempt, both federal and state. So our organization is supporting those efforts. I know many of you are as well, but we will be giving people whatever financial help we can give them in terms of strategies for paying for mitigation. We've been hearing from consumers who are taking out home equity loans or seconds or different strategies people are using. We're really interested in absorbing any ideas that people have for how do you pay for the work that you need to do. The sustainable insurance strategy is continuing along. For those of you who are following it, the department has dropped several of the pieces. They dropped a third piece last Friday. So far, they have dropped the rules around insurance company rate filings and those rate filings having to be complete, which actually should really help. Insurers are still not entirely on board. I think we're working through that. The CAP modeling piece is about to go over to the Office of Administrative Law, allowing insurers to use those CAP models. And then in return, insurers have made this commitment that they will be writing more homes, insuring more homes in some of the higher risk areas. That's going to take a lot of work to work out how that's going to play out. And then this past week was an announcement about an agreement between the California Department of Insurance and the California Fair Plan that relates to them now being able to offer not just 20 million per location to an HOA or a business, but now they're going to be able to offer, with certain restrictions, 20 million per building, up to 100 million at that location. So that's going to help HOAs. It's going to help some of our ag businesses, some of the developers that that sort of brings a related concern about making it easier to build in the WUI. So that's just a whole nother issue. But we are trying to solve the immediate problem right now of people and businesses not being able to find insurance that's affordable or available for them. So we've got there's lots of more details to be worked out about this last piece, because in return for the FAIR Plan agreeing to be able to insure that much more, right? It's a lot of liability. Already they have a lot of liability. There's a piece of this deal that would change the assessment formula. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on that, but if there's enough interest in the group, we can definitely do a wrap meeting just about the sustainable insurance strategy. I'm sure our friends at the DOI will be happy to come back. I just feel like I like to have our energy be focused on risk reduction as much as possible. But I know a lot of the stakeholders on this call are deeply involved in advancing the sustainable insurance strategy. Just know that United Policyholders has a very close working relationship with the DOI. I had a coffee yesterday with the woman who's writing the regs. And so we're very much trying to support them and give them our input when we're not entirely comfortable with a direction such as changing the FAIR Plan assessment formula. Okay, So that's my bit. I am thrilled today to have three of our really advanced working group members being here to share with us updates on what's going on in Marin County and in Novato. And Chief Tyler has addressed our working group before. He was one of our very early working group members. And to remind everybody to sort of keep us grounded, a lot of the work that this working group has been doing started with this recognition that firefighting agencies, small, large, throughout California, were already playing a very important role in facilitating home hardening and creating defensible space and doing other fire prevention measures. And so, because these are entities that are physically in the communities where the risk is now perceived to be higher from all the data insurers are now accessing, aerial and other, that these firefighting agencies are such a critical partner in this effort because they're right there with connections in the community, with credibility in the community. And so the work that's been evolving in Marin is not only has it given us a lot of ideas because they're just constantly innovating up there, but a lot of really good models to use in other communities. And they're going to go. Our presenters will go through some of the innovation and the models that they're using. So I want to thank Bill, Mark Brown, the executive officer with the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, which is a unique and very, I think, important structure, and then Jason Brooks with FireAside. So Jason, if you want to share your screen now, I am so grateful to have the three of you with us, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll go ahead and sort of kick this off for everyone. Last, month when this group got together, as we talked about best practices like we usually do, we recognized that there were certain gaps in how do we capture data, how do we capture assessments, how do we capture the mitigation and hazard work that we're doing in such a way that it can actually demonstrate to insurance companies, back to the public, interact with neighborhoods, with elected officials, et cetera, to be able to tell the story of the work that's being done in very concrete ways. And, I think someone asked if, how do you take this assessment, and is there any way to share it with IBHS or with the FAIR plan so that then they would, go ahead and give you some of these potential discounts and breaks or insurance where otherwise you might not be able to get there. And so we do have some pathways that we are that are evolving that we want to share with you because we think these are going to be key to bringing this all together. And so on the screen there, you just see, Mark Brown, myself, and Jason Brooks with a little bit of our background. So Jason, next slide. I want to talk just a minute about data because everyone usually gets very concerned if we share parcel level data about a particular homeowner's home. Isn't that going to be used by insurance companies so that they will not be insured or they'll be dropped? And that's not the case with the data that we're collecting or the programs that we're doing. And so I want to just be clear about that. We are collecting this data to go directly to the residents so that they can really understand in new and special ways what their risks are, what they can do, also measuring the progress as they go so that we can really help the community. And nothing that we're going to show you at the parcel level, which there's quite a lot of data that's being collected, none of that is being shared without the explicit permission of the property owner on the parcel level basis. We do collect information and data in aggregate, and we can share that, but we have to be able to use this data to tell the story, to be as scientific in our approach as possible, so that people can really get it at the end of the day. So next one, Jason. So just a bit about our defensible space evaluations and the cycle that we use. So basically we have neighborhoods that are throughout Marin County, and I'll specifically talk about Novato for a second too, but we divide the entire town into different sections, and we have defensible space. Some are called inspectors that are seasonals, others are hired full-time wildfire mitigation specialists with special training and certifications to go through these neighborhoods to do these evaluations in an organized fashion. And sometimes the requests will come in especially for grants, or there's been complaints, weed complaints, people complain about their neighbors. Maybe it's the real estate sales, and all of those get incorporated into these types of evaluations. So these wildfire mitigation specialists and assessment folks are going to go door to door to visit these properties. And they always encourage the residents to walk with them. Now, they'll knock on doors. In some cases, if they'll go up to try and see if someone's home to do this. A lot of times what we'll do is do an evaluation from the roadside, or just what you can see from the street. And then that initial assessment and report is sent to the homeowners, and then with an invitation for us to come back for an in-person meeting, because the best thing that we can do is to meet with the homeowner and to walk around the entire structure and sort of a walk and talk, educate as we go. But regardless of whether we're able to actually do that full assessment or whether it's just done from the street, that homeowner or that property owner is going to get a customized, comprehensive online report. And we're going to show you in detail kind of what that looks like. And it's intuitive, and it's user-friendly, and it's used for education and access to other resources that homeowners have. So this is really important in this portal that they go and take a look at this information. So then what happens is, once we identify various items, on and around the home that are hazards, and talk about the importance of resolving them, then homeowners can go in and they can try and resolve those, and they can submit photographs and information that show, hey, it's been resolved. Then the person that does the assessment that's been assigned to, or a supervisor, can go in and verify that those pictures are accurate, or they may go back out and do a second assessment to verify that we indeed have progress, and that there's actual resilience now being built in. And that's also then, since we're doing these on the parcel level, that translates into a neighborhood, and that translates into the community as well. So next slide, Jason. And we also are constantly looking for feedback on this process. How is it working? And over and over again, we're getting very, very high marks. So if you think about a Yelp review, or you want to go stay at a hotel and you want to know how is it there, you want to know how many people are assessing this, and our scores are very, very high, 4.9 out of 5 for residents that are surveyed throughout the system. And since the beginning of the calendar year, we've completed over 12,000 assessments. And you can see the investments that have been made in fire resilience. So the residents have spent about $7.8 million worth of work. That's hazard reduction, that's hardening, that's vegetation management, and that also translates to more than 56,000 hours worth of work. And we do surveys that follow up, and about 82% of those that had the evaluation report that identified those hazards did that specifically because of this tool and these assessments that are being done. So I'm going to pass this over to Jason now. He's going to walk us through other important parts of the capture tool. And then Mark Brown is going to talk more about the community involvement and that connection with the insurance. And we'll make sure all of your questions are answered before we take off today. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Chief. So kind of as the Chief was saying, at the heart of everything that's done in Marin, there's the resident portal. How do you educate the resident on what needs to be done, what they should do? How do you prioritize it for them? And also then how do you sort of give them all the possible resources, whether it's insurance related, as we're talking about here, maybe there's financial assistance, or maybe it's just finding a contractor or education material. So at the heart of this is the resident portal. The other things we'll briefly touch on, right, is like, how do you run a program like this? How does a place like Novato or Marin County or other places, how are they running the programs efficiently, getting to the right homes, engaging the resident? How do you deliver all the resident assistance? It may be financial assistance, or it really may just be, there's a chipper day coming by in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and making sure people know about that. measuring, and Mark will talk about this a little bit. How do you really measure like the risk of it? And how do you measure the impact that's being made in the community and measure that for not at the parcel level, but also at the community and all of Marin? And then also, finally, and relevant for today's conversation, some of the tools that are happening for risk transfer or for the insurance industry, both at the individual parcel level, but then also, again, at the community level when you think about like CAT modeling and the reinsurance side. So we'll sort of walk through some of those pieces. But just remember, everything we do here, we need the homeowners to do their part. They need to know what to do and how to do it. So the core of everything is built around that resident portal. So I'll take part one, and then I'll let Mark Brown kind of walk through part two. But really what I'm going to talk about a little bit is how do you collect really high quality data on defensible space and structure resilience. At the core of this is a set of tools that is used by any of the agencies or fire safe councils that are using the FireAside system, is effectively collecting where things are, how to classify them. And we do a lot of work behind the scenes around calibrating based on where the user's located, where they're dropping items. We have computer vision running in the background that's doing analytics around that. We have a couple, almost 2 million, 1.5 here, but almost 2 million photos that are used that have helped build out the library. And really, for this group, what you take away is that there's all this different information that is collected about a structure. And as we all know, every home is different. Every home has multiple sidings. It has different windows, vegetation, all this information. But it is collected out in the field when someone goes out there from Novato Fire or other places. And what that produces for the homeowner is their digital wildfire report, which you can see an example of here. What are the different actions that homeowner needs to do? What is like, where does it need to happen? Either removing a tree, spacing around a propane tank, all these individual items, and they're built out for the property owner to sort of understand by like prioritization, by severity, by the zone to the structure, et cetera. So these are all items that are then produced for the homeowner. And with that, as you've heard us talk about a little bit, is also what are the resources to help the resident do that? So this might be a resident who prefers to interact in Spanish as their first language. Well, great, the information is available to them in bilingual where needed. This might be just helping someone find out and know that grants are available to help remove that juniper that you see there on the screen. And so we tell the resident, easy way to go out and find what financial assistance. It could also just be, there's a chipper day coming by your house, and if you can just get it to the curb, that'll get taken and get dragged away from there. But at the heart of this is, now that we've educated a homeowner on the different things they need to do, how do we make it as accessible as possible, and then also measure progress for the homeowner? Talking about financial assistance, because I know that's come up, a lot of these projects can be kind of daunting, or people know where to start. And inside of the platform, there's what agencies and partners are doing is they're able to design financial assistance programs that can be like very parcel specific. It could just be a very small neighborhood. We have an East Bay community that's doing it for 45 homes right now. They've identified in a certain area a certain thing they want to execute, and they're able to just run very targeted campaigns. Those are designed around specific high priority items. So not every defensible space item is the same. Not every home hardening item is the same, and potentially even the location of the item. Maybe you only want to help homeowners deal with combustible mulch in zone 0 to 5. If the combustible mulch is beyond that, there is no financial assistance. So all of that is kind of built out and sort of dynamically built for them. Examples of some of the different programs that we're seeing out there, not only in Marin, but in other places in other states, are everything from like 50% cost share type programs, using direct assistance for low income residents to help them understand that, as long as they get to a full combustible non-zero. We're seeing streamlined programs where it's just a blanket $250. Just if everything is clean, you just get $250, no receipts, nothing. Just how to make it as simple and as accessible to different homeowners based on what they need. And there's a lot of other examples out there. I just wanted to share a couple there with this group. I think what's most exciting, right, is like ultimately residents are doing the work. And how do you measure that? When we talk at this group, how do we show insurance companies, and how do we show that like people are doing the work and taking risk out? This is just a random sample we pulled together here. On the left-hand side, what you see is after a property is evaluated, residents upload their photos to show that they've done the work. So here's what was found in your inspection or your evaluation. Here's your photo of you doing the work. On the right-hand side, these are all things that were resolved a day ago, Sunday afternoon, right? Just pick 3 at random where you had an unenclosed deck. The homeowner did the work, and you can see that they replaced that mulch. They've put in gravel. They've screened in that deck. You've got somebody who's got gutters with some leaves that were found in it. They've cleaned them, a juniper in zone 0. And so again, thinking about how do we show people who are, in the risk transfer business or the insurance industry, that work is being done and that homes are taking action. This is a very like systematic and documented way to do that. And also, again, as I talk about a lot, prioritizing the right things for the homeowners to do and giving them positive feedback. You know, this is a little bit of an eye chart, but we'll kind of talk about kind of data standards and really kind of as how does what you just saw from the resident side go over to whether it's the IBHS, whether it's the NIST standards, the Safer from Wildfire, all these different types of things. And so as an item gets found in the system, all this other information is recorded. Is it compliance related? What resources are available? We've talked about risk a little bit. How is it classified? Seasonal grasses, is it different than like, a wood fence? Because a seasonal grass gets resolved in the winter, the wood fence doesn't. So how do you think about different types of things? What's the homeowner doing? Sometimes, and we saw this, I saw one of these yesterday. You had a homeowner in the Tahoe Basin who's like, just came out of surgery and they acknowledge they want to do it. They're going to take care of their action. They just ask for more time. That's a great way to engage a homeowner. So the resident has acknowledged it. They're working on it. They just need a bit of time in their kind of space. But I'll talk a little bit about kind of like the walk over to kind of to the insurance side of things. And so I'll repeat what Chief Tyler said a little bit. Remember, in this situation, no information is ever shared with an insurance company unless the property owner explicitly chooses to share it. So there is no sharing at any time unless the homeowner the property owner has made that decision. But the starting place is, what is the discovery? So maybe there's combustibles that are stored underneath the deck. Where is it relative to the structure? It's close to the structure, right? Because again, it can matter as to what to do with it and how risky it is. Is it a positive or negative thing, right? Like sometimes you might have a metal screen over a window that's different than on a single pane window than not. So is it a positive or negative attribute? Are there any mitigations present? Is maybe the deck's fully enclosed with ember-proof meshing or something like that in this example? How do you classify it? Okay, this is into the deck and attachments place. How do I map it, or what insurance program is this particular individual going for? IBHS? Are they going for the CDI, Safer from Wildfire? Different classifications, and this is really up to whatever the homeowner is trying to accomplish. But in this particular case, combustible stored under the deck would mean they don't qualify. What are the recommended actions? Clear those combustibles and/or enclose that deck with ember-resistant material. And when the homeowner takes those actions, uploads photos, this item now flips to resolved, and now the positive outcome, right? They're eligible for that discount, and it's been verified by the fire agency. So I just share this as a very simple work through, and this flow is happening all the time in the background where certain things are found. Where is it? Is it positive or negative? How is it going to be used? Is it relevant for an IBHS designation, a CDI designation, et cetera? Is it been resolved? And then what do you do with that? Take action. One kind of thing as I wrap up here and before I turn it over to Mark, there's also, we've talked about survey work and sort of engaging residents, but I think this is like a really interesting one. Is despite as much as insurance is top of mind, including for myself as somebody who lives in Northern California, there's been some survey work looking at like what caused someone to take action. So it's great that you screened in your deck this weekend. It's great that you removed that juniper. But what got you to take it, right? Like what was the motivator? Because if we can understand that, we can get more of it done. And what you really notice is this really big jump around just this social responsibility and this feeling of like my individual property risk, and how much more material that is insurance. Insurance is very acute. Like I said, I'm dealing with it personally right now. But I think what we're finding and what we're really leaning into is helping people understand how they're taking actions for their community and the difference their choice to remove that juniper, or their choice to work with a neighbor and swap out a fence or do something, actually makes a difference at the neighborhood risk, and how that is actually can be a bigger driver in the social power of that to get people to take action. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Brown to talk a little bit about kind of how the risk reduction work is happening in the community. Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So there's some great questions in this chat already, and it kind of speaks to this, and that is the data collection and how thorough that data collection is. And then, but more importantly, what do we do with that data? So next slide, please.
Yep.
All right, so the bottom left of the screen is a pretty obvious statement. If in the bundle of homes that only has none of the homes have any home hardening and defensible space work, if those first two homes ignite, then we're likely to have a lot of homes that are destroyed. If we have a handful of homes that have gone through home hardening defensible space and those 2 homes ignite, well, then we're going to have fewer homes that are destroyed, but we still are likely to have homes destroyed. Versus if we have deep penetration of home hardening and defensible space, the models clearly show, and there finally is some models that show propagation of fire through the built environment coming out of the University of Colorado with Dr. Hussam Mahmood. It's great information for us now, and we're starting to incorporate that into what we're doing in Marin. In another kind of eye chart, and I'll walk you through these 2 tables on the right. The table on the top right is saying, and it kind of relates to the slide previously, that people are taking action because it's the right thing to do. What we're finding is the highest risk properties are the properties that are taking action, which is great for our community. When we like to say that the strength of our communities is some of its parts. So if we have our highest risk residents taking action, then we are helping to increase the safety for the overall community, not just for that house that's doing the work. And I do think investing like we have been in the public education campaign, and I think our best public education, as Chief Tyler talked about, is having our wildfire mitigation specialists walking around the house with the resident. That is our best public education right there. And so by getting deep penetration with those conversations, I think that's where we're seeing our results. And then on the bottom right, you see the line for 2022, and those were the findings that we had on initial round of inspections to our properties. And then when we visited them again or had resolutions through the resident reporting, you could see how many resolution or findings we had in 2023. We see a significant drop of findings because the residents are taking action. And then the dotted line is what we've started to see in the projection that we're seeing for the findings for 2024. So a lot of great work is happening. And then on the right, you see we're trending even higher than we did for 23 for the people continuing to take action. And so many of our properties, they're not going to be able to take action on every single thing that we ask them to take action on in 1 year. And we really would like them to take a year by year approach and get the highest risk stuff taken care of, or maybe it's the low hanging fruit that'll be easy for them to take care of, but at least have a plan to work through those. Next slide, please. And then, this is an example of strength of our community, some of its parts. So we are going through each item is evaluated based on our radiant heat, ignitability, and ember potential, because we know that a lot of times it's the embers that are bouncing off the house that are starting the vegetation in zone 0 or going up into the vents and starting the house's attic on fire. But we also have in some places, we'll have enough vegetation that we can have enough radiant heat to cause problems. And then we have 2 significant weather paradigms in Marin that can spread fire. The obvious one is the Diablo winds that we witnessed on October 8th, 2017, which drove the North Bay fires. We also have what's called a dry sea breeze, being a coastal community. And it's about a 12 to 24-hour period where that first marine layer onshore push is actually a very dry wind that comes through. So we actually model both of those weather scenarios. And then it gives us, we are able to prioritize where our work is being done. So this bottom picture, you could see the darker the color, the higher risk the properties are in those 100-meter grids. And so then we can start focusing our efforts there. Next slide. And I really love this graphic here. So let's start on the far left where you see minimal risk to structures, and the dotted line go into a specific finding of vegetation. And when our evaluators go around the house, we know exactly where the parcel is. We know what type of terrain is there. We know its exposure to the wind. We know how the parcel is situated on, or the house is situated on a parcel. And then we know exactly how the vegetation is situated compared to the parcel, but not just that parcel, but the neighboring parcels. So you see the minimal risk to structures, you see that finding. With the Diablo wind, the ember generation and the distance those embers are likely to go poses minimal threat to any structure, whether it's on that property or off that property. The next one down, you see primary impact to the structure on the parcel. So that piece of vegetation and it has something that produces a lot of embers, it's really going to threaten the house that is on that property. And in the last one, you see that vegetation is not a threat to the house itself, that is the property it's on, but it's actually threatening a couple of other houses. So that's how we can start getting into the community level engagement. Next slide. And then before we get into questions, what I'll talk about is some of the other modeling that we've been doing, and that is combining our on parcel analysis with the shaded fuel break work that we've been doing. And really our shaded fuel breaks, we consider them extended defensible space along the wildland urban interface boundary. We have in portions of Marin a very distinct wildland urban interface boundary. And we have over 100 miles in planning and about 50 miles that have been executed of these extended fuel breaks. And we've modeled the reduction of fire behavior within those fuel reduction zones. We know how much slower the fire is going to be going. We know how less likely the fire will be to get into the canopy and create embers that are broadcast into the homes. We're also modeling how much easier our firefighters can get in there to take action on the wildfire. And then we're modeling the rates of spread. So then when we combine that shaded fuel break modeling with our home hardening and defensible space evaluations, we can see where our strengths and where our weaknesses are, and it really allows us to get strategic. And then if I may just make one last connection to insurance, and that is the catastrophic risk models that are being used right now to decide whether or not a property is going to be insured. And I'll share a personal story. State Farm non-renewed me, and they were less than transparent on why they non-renewed me. It was one of three reasons: fire following earthquake, too many policies within my geographical region, or wildfire threat. And they didn't tell me. So of course I started to go through the process of getting my insurance, and I called up Farmers, was sitting down with the insurance agent and watched her type my address into a catastrophic risk model and get the yes or no if she can insure my property. And the answer was yes. When I have State Farm saying no, and then I do a little bit of digging, they're using different catastrophic risk models. There's three main companies that do it. They're using two of the different companies. And what's unfortunate for communities like, and it's not just Marin, it's communities that are involved in RAP, is that none of the work that we are doing is digested by the catastrophic risk models. And so what we really need to do is get our work to be visible, both on parcel work and our off parcel work to be visible to the catastrophic risk models, so they can start saying, you know what, yes, CDI wants us to start insuring in high risk areas, and for the communities that are doing all that great work, you know what, that's a good investment for us. We're going to start insuring within those high risk areas. And so that's where I think we start getting into a lot of traction. I thought for sure that insurance and maintaining insurance was going to be one of the things that really motivated people to get work done on their property. But as you saw by that survey, that's not really the case. But I think if we are successful in people maintaining their insurance because of their work, you'll start seeing that number get a little bit higher. And with that, I think it's time for us to probably dig into some of the questions that are in here.
Yeah, and Amy, I just would like to share, if I can, really quick, Mark, you talked about some of the community-wide stuff and the shaded fuel breaks. So I'm just doing a quick screen share with all of you, and you kind of see some mapping that we've done. And so in this instance, this is a neighborhood that's in the Ignacio area, which is in southern Novato. The red slashed areas is the Novato shaded fuel break work that's being done. The areas that are in this kind of gold or yellow are city-owned open space areas between parcels where homes are built, and vegetation work was done within those. And then the green areas is the work that the homeowners associations were responsible for on their own. And so you can see that when you start layering these things and adding them up, and then being able to share this information in aggregate, You know, this is the kind of thing that doesn't show up on any kind of hazard or risk models right now. And so we want to be able to, you know, share all of this information. Now, just because we show it on a map doesn't mean it's all done at the same time. And, you know, we have these formulas that are being developed with Willow Labs around if the initial shaded fuel break work is done. And what that means is, you know, limbing up to 8 feet or so, clearing up the vegetation below and then cutting the grass. How long can we anticipate that that fuel break will give us its maximum, you know, risk reduction effort? And so they've got formulas that show, you know, what the return interval will be that we need to come in and how long the risk will stay abated at what percent. This is the theoretical part. We still need to demonstrate the ground truthing of this to show, look, this is what we plan to do. Have we actually done it out in the field? So there's some more work to be done, but this is the type of data that we're collecting to be able to move the needle to, you know, help our communities get credit for all of the work that they're doing. And so I saw some questions in the chat there about how's all this paid for. And in Marin County, this is all funded through a parcel tax measure that was voted overwhelmingly parcel tax by the community at close to 70% or so, or maybe over 70%. So we have 10 years where we are bringing in revenue to be able to make these changes and then demonstrate to the community that we need to do this again in another 10 years and just keep this work going. Because we know on the shaded fuel break work and all this stuff, it's going to grow back. It's going to come back. And so it's got to be, there's no silver bullet. It's an all of the above approach. And we want to get credit for all of that.
Yeah, and you know, thank you so much, guys. Awesome, inspiring. And I don't know, Emily, if we recorded, there was an earlier wrap group meeting where we had Chief Tyler walk us through how they did the bond measure. If that was recorded, we, you know, I would say like, let's share that. But I think that's that nuts and bolts. People probably have more questions about that we can pursue on another one. Before we get into the questions that are in the chat, I wanted to just identify kind of the main areas that people are going to, you know, had questions about, but also acknowledge 3 of the people that are on the call today that are special to us. One is Stacy Heaton with Rural County Representatives of California. RCRC is a statewide organization that has both been partnering with United Policyholders to get our California Home Insurance Survey out far and wide. And they also have given us some funding, which has been really helpful. So I want to acknowledge Stacy, and that's all the supervisors in the counties all across the state. Danielle Kagan with CSA Insurance Companies on. She was one of our presenters at the last meeting. Really helpful. We are hearing good things about, I don't know if this is true, but that if you get your IBHS certification, that CSAA is offering renewal policies on a consistent basis to people who got that certification. I don't, if you can put in the chat, Danielle, if you're still with us, whether it's base alone or whether it is, you have to get plus to get that guaranteed issue, that would be great. And then the third person I want to acknowledge is our former insurance commissioner, Dave Jones, who is joined us. Has been doing some very important work since he left that position, advancing controlled burn, facilitating controlled burns and examining nature-based solutions to climate change and doing good work. So with that, the areas that people are asking questions about, we have privacy, right? You heard Chief Tyler come right out of the gate saying, we're not sharing your personal information. Now, we've got a situation here where there's an imbalance in information, right? Insurers are buying a lot of data. They're buying the aerial images. And United Policyholders has advanced a proposal to set some fair ground rules there so that the homeowner can actually see the photos and have a chance to correct any misunderstandings about things that the insurer saw in the photos. But privacy is a concern, right? Because insurers are accessing all the data that's bad about you, right? They can looking at your trees and they're getting these risk scores and they're scaring them, right? But we're hearing from Mark and Chief Tyler that there's a lot of information that's not getting into those models that has to get there. And so, you know, there's some questions in here about the data commons. And so I definitely want to hear you guys. I know there was one answer you already gave, but we can talk a little bit more about that. Very important question about the 5 feet, right? One of our longtime members, Susan Frommer, but trees give shade. It keeps the house cool. Still seems to be a huge problem. The strict enforcement of absolutely nothing in the 5 feet. So if there's anything that any of the three of you can say about that, people want to hear it. The other thing is this, we have this IBHS list, we have the Safer from Wildfires list. So what I'd like to ask before we get into the questions that are in the chat, since you already have, you have gotten some of your team to be wildfire mitigation specialists certified, right? So you've got those people. So somebody who lives in your area can get in touch with your agency and ask for a wildfire mitigation specialist to be sent out. Is the Safer from Wildfires program offering an alternative certification to what IBHS is offering, or is that just so can you get a Safer from Wildfires good housekeeping seal or not?
That's a great question. And the thing, what I like about the Safer from Wildfire regulations is that you don't have